I wanted to go to the issue of the whole discussion that you're engaged in pushing President Obama from the left. In September, at the Democratic Convention, Democracy Now! Hosted a debate on Obama's record with Glenn Ford, executive editor of Black Agenda, and Michael Eric Dyson, the author and MSNBC analyst, Georgetown University professor. This is what Michael Eric Dyson had to say.
The reality is that the American left will never be able to participate not simply in the pageantry of American politics and the light and airy stuff that conventions engage in, of course, the fluff and the desiderata may be absolutely true, as Mr. Ford has indicated, but the reality is that Obama is as progressive a figure who has the chance of being elected in America. Friedrich Engels is not going to be the Secretary of Labor, and Marx will not be the Secretary of Treasury. Bottom line. But if you ain't in the game, Miami Heat is playing it's talking about sports, is playing the Oklahoma Thunder. It's not, I'd prefer it be the Los Angeles Lakers. This is the game we're talking about. And if the American left can't be involved in the actual practice of government to offer the critical and salient insights that are available, take 2000 when siding with Nader, then Al Gore, who should have been president, who would have prevented some of the stuff that we see now happening, didn't occur. The left won't take responsibility for the fact that with the extraordinary intelligence of a Glenn Ford and many other leftists notwithstanding, the reality is that he's the most progressive president, as Gary Dorian, an American leftist who teaches at Union Theological Seminary, argues, since FDR.
That's author, professor, commentator Michael Eric Dyson. Tavis Smiley, your response.
I've known Michael Eric Dyson for a long time, and I love him with all of my heart. It is so disappointing, though, to hear Michael, Professor Dyson, advance that kind of argument. He comes out of a black prophetic tradition that is rooted in speaking truth to power, and I might add to the powerless. But to somehow try to suggest in any way that this president has been progressive or is the best example of progressivism that we could put forth in this country is just inaccurate. This is precisely why Dr. West and I and others, we don't have a monopoly on the truth, and we're not the only ones. But this is why we believe that the president has to be pushed. I've said so many times across the nation that great presidents aren't born, they're made. They have to be pushed into their greatness. There is no Abraham Lincoln. I just saw the movie coming out this weekend, I think, The Lincoln Project. And Lincoln isn't Lincoln if Frederick Douglass isn't pushing him. FDR isn't FDR if A. Philip Randolph and Eleanor Roosevelt aren't pushing him. LBJ isn't LBJ if MLK isn't pushing him. And so what I hear in Professor Dyson's critique is that there is some excuse to be made or that we have to settle for this as the best example of progressivism that we can find. And Doc and I just don't believe in settling. We don't believe in making excuses. We believe that if he is not pushed, he's going to be a transactional president and not a transformational president. And we believe that the time is now for action and no longer accommodation. But that doesn't happen unless you're pushed. So the excuse making and the settling for the fact that this is the best that we can do. Can you imagine where this country would be if women had settled? This is the best that we can do. If black folk in slavery and segregation had said this is the best that we can do, that's not even the spirit of America, much less the spirit of those who come out of the black prophetic traditions. That's disappointing to hear, even though I love him with all my heart.